I'm David Liggett with Data Center Hawk. This is HawkTalk 48. I am with Aaron Wangenheim, Chief Operating Officer with T5 Data Centers, and we're talking about the data center industry next.
Hey, I'm David Liggett with Data Center Hawk. Focused on cloud and colocation, data center industry trends, the dynamic market.
I'm David Liggett with Data Center Hawk, and I'm here with Chief Operating Officer of T5 Data Centers, Aaron Wangenheim, and we are excited to get to talk about the data center market with him. So, Aaron, welcome to this discussion. Glad to have you.
Fantastic. Thanks, David. Good to see you.
We have spent some time focused on the growth in different data center markets, really across the U.S. through some of our video content over the last several months. And so the market we wanted to focus on today was Los Angeles. If those that are watching, if you're familiar with T5 Data Centers, you know they have a portfolio of data centers internationally, but they have been in the Los Angeles market now, among others, for a long time. And so Aaron and his expertise is going to be perfect for this call as we talk about what's happening in LA and why that market has grown the way that it is. We are in the midst of a really interesting time with the COVID-19 pandemic challenges that are in place. So I'm actually in our office here in Dallas. We're starting the process of opening back up, but Aaron is still in his home office. And so Aaron, once again, thank you for joining us, but just give us an update on how you and also the T5 family are doing during the pandemic.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, everyone's doing well. So, we feel very blessed that we're in an industry that is really in demand right now. It feels like not only are we busy, but our customers, we're operating a lot of data centers that have real critical workloads and enabling things like this meeting wouldn't have happened without kind of the infrastructure that we're all involved in. And so it's an exciting time. It's a challenging time. It's definitely a stressful time, but everyone's holding up well. And luckily it seems like we're getting back to, whatever the new normal is, but at least back to normal operations and hopefully on the tail end of this and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear that, you and obviously the T5 team are doing well and healthy. One of the, I think, interesting things about T5 in the last several years is some of the strategic moves that the company has made, and it's really been fun to watch T5 grow. And I obviously have been in the space a long time. We've known each other for a long time, and but one of the areas that T5 has always been focused on and invested in is Los Angeles. And this is a highly strategic data center market, as it relates to the businesses that are there, the connectivity options that are there. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, why you all felt that this was a market to invest in a long time ago, and then just historically, maybe how you have seen it grow over the last several years.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks. It's been a very interesting market. We've been there, since 2006 is when we first kind of looked at that asset and started the development of it. So we've seen it grow. We've seen the nuances, the challenges, and then, more recently, the benefits of what's happening there. So, the premise was always about media and entertainment, right? And so that hasn't changed, but certainly the way that it's being serviced has changed, right? As we know, it's an expensive market, relatively speaking, utility prices, taxes, construction prices, things like that. So, so the customers really need to, or have to be in that marketplace for the most part. We saw early days, obviously, when Wilshire was the crux, the core of the development down there, and that's where things started. Obviously the most wired building on the West Coast, or, some people say anywhere. And so downtown LA kind of became the hub, and you saw not just one Wilshire, but, CoreSite with their postal annex. And then you had a number of other downtown kind of older high-rise buildings being converted more into telco-esque space. And then on the West side, you had Equinix, and you had the 365 main guys, and started to see some growth there. And that's obviously where we are, and that's seen some great growth. And then Orange County kind of perked up along the way. So really you have three markets in LA, three distinct markets, each with their pros and cons, of course. And we're seeing growth really in all three of them now. So it's been neat to kind of understand how and why things have grown. But it gets back to M&A, or M&E, I should say. And it gets back to local enterprises, right? So the folks who have a big presence there, we have a number of government or quasi-government customers that want to be there, service customers in Southern California. And so kind of local business has been a piece of that. And then media and entertainment, I think we're seeing now, obviously the big draw, the hyperscalers coming in with their local zones, trying to service that vertical.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you brought up a really interesting trend, for those that are watching, just the downtown core, and how, every city, every major city, traditionally has, one carrier hotel or two buildings that are highly connected, where, you have the major ecosystems built. And so from that, then they're started to iterate out into the, more suburb areas of these different cities. It's certainly, the case for LA. I think what's interesting too about LA is just, it's such a strategic market, because as you mentioned, the costs are higher. But if you are there, especially with the larger requirement, you're there because it serves a very specific and strategic business purpose. And that's certainly, I think, what we saw in 2019, and we saw some really large growth, when in comparison to other years in 2019. And so just talk about that. Talk about we talked about the past, talk about the current state and what you saw, last year, and what was the reason that it was led to be such a, successful year for the data center industry.
Yeah, no doubt. And, LA, obviously the number 2 MSA in the country, right? So when you think about those millions and millions and millions of customers, of eyeballs, of game players, of people consuming, I think what we've seen is a big transition where, especially with the hyperscalers, they need to have a local presence in these marketplaces. And we're seeing these campaigns, not just in LA, but in a number of cities, where if they can't serve that city out of their AZ, if the latency is too far, they're clearly setting up a smaller footprint and a smaller AZ in these markets. And I think LA has been, in a lot of ways, the test case for that. You got the Bay Area and you have Phoenix as other more major AZ areas. And they found that the latency just wasn't working. They couldn't service those customers. And so they're putting footprints there. So I think, most of the growth that we're seeing right now definitely is coming in from the hyperscale and the cloud providers. That being said, we're still seeing a lot of enterprise users, traditional business. That really hasn't slowed at all. Some time ago, the size of those requirements really kind of shrank down from the wholesale. What we started as a wholesale provider and still do a lot of that. But a lot of the requirements would shrink down to 100 kW or thereabouts, more of a retail size. You're seeing retailers ramping up their presence, taking down more space within the marketplace. So that's creating some of this demand right now as well. So everyone's kind of chasing the local business, and then the hyperscalers are doing big footprints. So in the last year and a half, we've seen some big footprints being taken down by those guys, and we continue to see pretty steady growth from those guys. And then the supply side, that's the real challenge down there. It's, as you mentioned, it's tough, it's expensive. It's very difficult to develop. It takes a period of time that, can be years, literally, to get approvals, to get power. So the supply side is going to be constrained for the foreseeable future. We only have one data center project under development right now. That's CoreSite downtown. Otherwise, it's very static and very challenging.
Yeah, the probably you could make that same argument in an area like Northern California, Silicon Valley. I mean, just the tight real estate market, the development challenges that can be there from a permitting or environmental standpoint. I mean, there's just there's certain challenges there. So when you do, I mean, just going back to y'all's vision to 2006 and seeing that, there's opportunity there and it would make sense to be there, certainly has paid off. And, it's interesting to see that growth take place. Let's on the hyperscale discussion, because you mentioned that and just the growth last year. My personal thought on that is just the ability to scale fast, to be flexible as you get transactions completed. Timing, getting things done quickly. I know those are all important, but just talk about that. As a developer, as someone that has built data centers across the world, why those things are so important for those companies.
Yeah, I mean, runway is obviously one of their key considerations, right? We all know that they have their set of specs that they want, and of course they're going to have their price that they want to pay. But they invest a lot bringing in the network and setting up operations in these facilities, and they want to know that they can grow, right? And that growth, they're like every other company out there. They don't know exactly what it's going to be. They got their guesses, they got their inputs, but ultimately they know that they are going to grow, and so they need to have a partner that can grow with them, which can be a challenge, right? I mean, it's they're talking on the scale that in a market like LA is very difficult to maybe plan that far ahead, and when it costs a lot to buy land, when it costs a lot to develop, as a provider, we need to balance those things and make sure we're not getting over our skis, yet still be responsive to these guys and show them a path forward where they feel comfortable.
Yeah, so that totally makes sense. And tell us about the T5 LA facility. I mean, I should have probably done this at the beginning, but I didn't. But tell us just about what you all have and just kind of that thought process from '06 into why it made sense to enter into some sort of interest in this property and what you liked about it, et cetera.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're on the west side in El Segundo, which I think has inherent advantages and a couple challenges, but single story facility as opposed to trying and run your heavy racks up a loading elevator and no parking and things like that you get downtown. So we were initially attracted to the west side. Media and Entertainment is headquartered there. At the time, there was still a pretty big defense industry within El Segundo. There still is some there, but that's been waning in recent years. And so, the vision at that point is still holds true today, that we want to build quality product consistently. So if you go into a T5 at LA, it's going to be the same quality as if you go into a T5 at Chicago or any of our other assets. We want to be known for, that very robust, very resilient, purpose-built facilities. So for us, it's not necessarily about trying to be, everything to everybody. It's pretty consistent. So in LA, the big issues, number one, power, getting it, and the cost of it. So I had to address that issue. And then you're in a seismic zone. So we had to address that. And so we really built the facility, with that in mind. It's a 1.5 seismic, same as a hospital, right? All purpose built. So, really could design it how we wanted to. And then we have our own substation from SoCal Edison. So we get a reduced power rate and we get all that power, and it's actually more reliable than the others. So you take a market like LA and you really try and customize the solution to address whatever issues or challenges there may be in that marketplace. And I think that's what we tried to do there. And I think today, even, all these years later, that asset still shines, in my opinion, at least, as the best in the LA market. So, and that's, consistent again with our brand and what we're trying to do overall.
Yeah, it certainly differentiates itself from other facilities in that market. So I agree with you there. Yeah. Talk about the overall portfolio and kind of where your mindset is as a chief operating officer of the company. What do you anticipate for? And obviously, I know everybody's roadmap for 2020 has changed a bit over the last couple months. But what do you anticipate? From where you all are in markets today, and maybe where you'll be in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's without a doubt a very exciting time. Anytime you have change and challenges, I think it breeds opportunities. We're in a pretty good position, relatively speaking, that we've got a lot of dry powder and capital ready to spend. We have really upped our services divisions, so we operate over 50 data centers now, not just our own, of course, but third party. So we've diversified and we've really kind of built a skill set with FM and with construction to be more meaningful to the buyers of data center space than just a landlord. And so that it's taken a few years to kind of set the table, so to speak, of kind of our platform for moving forward. So a lot of services, a lot of focus on, how do we differentiate? How do we deliver that next level to the customers so we're not commoditized, so to speak? Our ability to act very quickly and move forward in markets where we see opportunities. I mean, it's, in a lot of the markets where there aren't barriers to entry, LA is great because, it'll take years before a new provider can come in there. But a lot of these markets, people can move quickly, right? And so we have to be that much quicker. We have to be able to execute when the opportunity is there. If there's a gap in supply or, we know that customers are looking at a given market. Ramping up all of our European operations will be a key initiative for 2020 into 2021. So, and that's not just assets, that's again, full teams over there doing facilities management and construction. And so, we're at 400 plus employees today, and I could see that growing, another 50% in the next 12 to 18 months. So a lot of neat things ahead, and we're just excited to be part of an industry that, is growing and is in high demand.
Yeah, and actually, you mentioned your facilities management business. So I feel like, and I know it certainly wasn't by accident or quiet, but I feel like you all quietly have grown that business to now it is a very big part of from an operational perspective, what you all are doing. But just talk about why that was important to your team to focus on that and grow that part of the business.
Yeah, it's diversification. I think was our initial thought of, there will be times when development doesn't make sense. For our sector, we haven't hit that time yet, but you look at other sectors, retail, hospitality, things like that, and that the development's going to slow down there. So we wanted to build stability into the company and really branch out. That was one of the key factors in starting it up. The other was just that constant interaction with the customer, right? So as a landlord, we may strike a deal with somebody and they move in. As an FM operator, we are literally on the front lines with them every single day and battling whatever challenges they have and trying to add value. And so it's turned into something a little bit more complex over time. That's where we started. Over time, it's become a real differentiator, I believe, for us. And again, as we know, rental rates have compressed, yields have compressed. It's becoming more challenging on the development side to make sense. And so to differentiate from the other guys out there, we've really invested a lot of time and energy and resources into making our facilities operations the best in the business. And we can go in and really garner that trust and respect of these customers, be their partner, not just today, but moving forward. And I think that helps us stand out a little bit from the other guys.
Yeah, and I would imagine that in this, in the time with the pandemic and some of the things that have happened, that just being able to have that relationship and know the customers and be, in those facilities already has really paid off. But what have been, some of the challenges that maybe you all have had to figure out from an operational perspective, in the midst of the COVID-19 time period we're in?
Yeah, I mean, whatever disaster recovery plan everybody had on the shelf beforehand did not address pandemics. Let's put it that way. So you basically had to take that, toss it out the window, start over, try and figure out, how do we operate? How do we protect our people? Little things like, okay, well, if vendors are coming on site, to do preventive maintenance and things like that. We had to address not just, the policies and procedures for bringing those people on, but what preventive maintenance is truly necessary. Expand those schedules, stop doing the ones that we don't have to do. It was really kind of an interesting exercise to go through of evaluating on the fly and with not great information, how do we address all this, these challenges? I mean, it's been interesting. It's been hard, but I think that, we know so much more now. Really kind of proud of our team and what they've been able to accomplish during all this. And of course our customers, they need to stay up. You can't have banks go down, you kind of lose credibility within the marketplace, right? I mean, that could be a pandemic of its own sort, right? A run on the banks because they go down, or, if the technology that we're using in this meeting doesn't work anymore. We also have government customers, like I mentioned in LA, that, you can't have those guys down. So you got to balance all these things, keeping everyone safe, but really showing up to work every day.
Yeah, it really created, quite a leadership and operational challenge for the industry as a whole. No provider was spared as it relates to thinking through, hey, how do we protect our people? How do we keep, obviously, our team members healthy while, also continuing to deliver the service needed to help companies' infrastructure stay up, which is in, today's world now even more important than it was, 3 months ago. The other thing you mentioned that was so good was just how much things changed in such a small period of time. We were talking before we started the call about just, your thoughts around like when we first started and when the pandemic hit, we were operating with just limited information, and literally the next day something would change. And just so as a leadership team, just working through, hey, how do we direct, hundreds of people in their jobs and in their safety, and and so quite a leadership challenge. But I really have been encouraged, obviously by T5 and other data center operators, because I feel like they've done a really good job of working through those challenges and addressing them in the most appropriate way possible. So it's been, I think it's made me really proud of our industry for sure. And, I'll continue to be as we, work through the challenges that are upcoming. But
good. Yeah, so thanks for saying that, David. And yeah, I mean, I think everyone has, it's not just our industry. Everyone's been challenged by this, right? So we've all had to look in the mirror and figure out how do we move forward. I think, this work from home trend, we're going to be hearing a lot more of that, and the challenges that carries with it, and how that interplays with data centers and technology and the things that we're doing here. I mean, you also think about, just communication, company communication, right? I mean, we're doing a lot more of it. We get on weekly calls, all hands and things like that. We never used to do that. It's so important to, kind of, sometimes you need a kick like this to think through how we should be acting and communicating and interacting, not just with our customers, but with our own team members. And so I think there's a lot of good change that, can come out of a situation like this. And I know that the other companies in our industry are doing a lot of the same things. So it's pointing us in a good direction.
Yeah, I agree. When you think about, the next, let's say the next year, next couple years, you've been in this industry a long time. What gets you most excited about what's coming in the future?
Huge growth. I mean, straight up, we're hearing about massive deployments with our customers. We're talking about, hundreds of megawatts growth within campuses. We're talking about, more local. This isn't just, a self-develop and we're going to keep growing on our big campus. It's also the local AZs. It's spreading out. It's new regions. I think that we were on a pretty good trajectory previously of growth, and I've seen nothing that would make me think that's going to slow down at all, and quite the contrary. I think that, the boom years are definitely going to keep going and increase what's in front of us. So it's going to be a challenge for us all to figure out, what's our place in that, and how do we provide the best value to our customers and the risks that we want to take as developers. But it's exciting times. I mean, we're not slowing down.
Yeah, and that is, that's a great, kind of mantra for the industry right now. I mean, it's moving fast. It's, we started the year, I was bullish on what would happen in 2020, and just given some of the things that have taken place. I mean, we're, hard to say we're more bullish now, but I mean, we think we would agree that things are speeding up, and growth is coming in different ways, different sizes, but certainly that is something that we see as well. Aaron, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. We wish you and the T5 team nothing but the best, and we're excited to see your role that you will play in the midst of all that growth. So thanks again, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Fantastic, David. Thanks for having me.